Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Statements of Shastra that look a little strange, but somehow there seems to be a correlation between these things and experiences, even today. Of course, in previous times, people could understand the scripture a little more, and probably the observation powers were more. But even today, we get some sort of understanding of what the scriptures mean. Of course, they operate on different levels, and some of it is symbolic and some of it is coded. But nonetheless, we do get some understanding from it. So, this is a verse from chapter 16, text 6. Dvabhuta sagalokesmin daiva sura evacha daivo vishtarasa prokta asuram partame srunu. Translation, O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac. Purport, Lord Krishna, having assured Arjuna that he was born with a divine quality, is now describing the demonic way. The conditioned living entities are divided into two classes in this world. Those who are born with divine qualities follow a regulated life. That is to say, they abide by the injunctions of scriptures and by the authorities. One should perform duties in the light of authoritative scripture. This mentality is called divine. One who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in the scripture and who acts according to his whims is called demoniac or asura. There is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of scriptures. It is mentioned in Vedic literature that both the demigods and the demons are born of the Prajapati. The only difference is that one class obeys the Vedic injunction and the other does not. Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. They say this world is unreal with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. Following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves and have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable, bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires, and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. Perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down to hell. Actually, this whole chapter is all about the demons and their various qualities. So, as Krishna explains here, basically, among the human species, we get the divine and the demoniac, or the deva and the asura. And since the beginning of the creation, we have these two types of beings. When Lord Brahma created the beings, and some were came out deva, especially from Aditi and Diti, we get the two types of creatures coming out, and one gave birth to the demons, one to the devas, and things like this. So, and then since that time we have a war going on The Asuras, led by people like Hiranyakasipu and Hiranaksha, try to control the universe. On the other hand, we have the Devas headed by Indra fighting back. And of course, the Devas win because Vishnu and Krishna are on their side. So they always get the help of Vishnu, and they win, and they get their kingdom back. Nevertheless, the demons are powerful and clever, and sometimes they get control for a little while, and then they get kicked back down like that. So these events are described in the Bhagavatam. Within the universe, this battle is going on between the two groups. And it often gets carried onto our planet. Even though a lot of this is outside, the Indraloka is way above us, we can't even see that. And even the hellish planets we don't see. Nevertheless, we feel the effects on this earth planet of their struggle. And sometimes the Asuras end up on the earth planet also. And like Kamsa was on the earth planet, and he dominated the earth planet and was, imprisoning the Brahmins, stopping yajna and worship of Vishnu, and persecuting everyone. So the Asuras also take over the earth and do things here. Sometimes they harass the people. Sometimes they control everything. So the earth planet also gets its share of Asuras. In fact, it looks as if the earth planet is the battleground, so to speak, and the Asuras try to control the human beings, and then Vishnu and his avatars come and get it back again and restore Dharma. So there's always this fight between the good and the evil going on within the universe. So now in Satya Yuga, of course, everything is very nice, and Devas are in control. But as we go on, until we get to Kali Yuga, gradually we get the influence of the demons and the Asuras more and more. So therefore we'll expect more gross problems and more influence even in this age of Kali, more prominence of the Asuras in the age of Kali. It's not surprising that would be so. Even though we hear about them in other ages, the influence should be more in this Kali Yuga because it's a fallen age, last age, full of tamagun. So this will attract the demons. So of course, who are the demons? Bhagavatam gives all sorts of names of different types of creatures in the universe. In the lower planetary systems, there's personalities down there, nagas, snakes, like that on the bottom. And in the Bhuvarloka above us, there's rakshasas and pisachas and other strange beings just above us. Some of them who can change their shapes at will, and they have mystic powers and things like that. They can appear and disappear. They can control you, control your mind, all sorts of things like this. So we have all these beings. And even in the 10th canto is described one of the demons, Salva. He was attacking Dwarka one time, and he had this huge spaceship the size of a city. And for that spaceship, he's dropping things on the city of Dwarka and attacking it. And he has a huge ship. It was bigger than a city up there, and it would appear and disappear and fly in the sky backwards and forwards and have all sorts of mystic powers behind it, and it would disappear suddenly. So we have descriptions of this run by an Asura. So we find even such things in other cultures of the world also, descriptions like this. And in history also, modern history, in the last few hundred years, we have descriptions like that. Now in our modern century also, we do get descriptions like this. In fact, of course, now we have so many people looking around, and they have cameras and things like videos and stuff, so you can catch a lot of more things nowadays, even on videos and cameras, than you could before. And of course now, as in the last 20 years especially, everything is more accessible to common people. So more people have these instruments nowadays. So not surprisingly, we find that people do actually record many things like this. It's not uncommon. Every week you'll find new pictures coming out. Of course, like 50 years ago, once in a while, someone would capture something on photo, or someone would say something, I saw this, and everyone would say, we can't believe you. And once in a while someone would catch a photo of something. It may or may not be real or whatever, or maybe bogus, or maybe concocted photo, whatever. But now, even because of the common nature of videos and cameras, everybody has them. We get much more records of things on film nowadays, and it happens. The occurrences are quite common. In fact, probably every week you'll find a few photos coming out of these things, and we cannot deny that it's all fake. Some of it, of course, is fake. We know some things are fake, but if we take into consideration the people that are filming and whatever, and we see they have no other motive, then we have to accept it, because there's so many of these occurrences that they can't all be fakes, and they cannot simply be some trick of light or whatever. Generally, the governments just kind of dismiss everything as being mass hysteria or something, and people are seeing things. But if it's recorded on film, how could they see things which are on film also? And then they may say that the film is, it's just some optical illusion caused by light or something like that. But some things that are recorded cannot be that also. They can be, those type of excuses also have to be discarded. And then we do get actual, images quite commonly coming up, which cannot be explained other than they're vehicles, and it looks as if human beings haven't made them. So this, of course, is what we call the flying saucers and the unidentified flying objects, the UFOs, which have become quite popular in even movies and things like that nowadays. And of course, beyond that, we get these other movies coming out like E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, etc. And then we have Independence Day and all these, so many movies with extraterrestrials coming down to Earth in either friendly or unfriendly manners. So in terms of entertainment industry, of course, they make money out of it, but that does not in any way reflect whether it is real or unreal. But people do have experiences like this. And they seem to be true, and it certainly is not against what the Vedic literature tells us. It said there's all sorts of elements in this universe. Some are subtle and some are gross, and some are evil and some are good. Some have great powers, and some are more advanced than us and do many things. So, therefore, when we hear about these things, it's not very surprising actually, because such things are already described in the Vedic literature. We have these things already in past history. So if they come up now, it's not anything very surprising. So we do get these things around. It's hard to do this, but we can just get a few pictures here if you want to see pictures. These are recent ones. Most of them are recent ones. But they have been appearing since the 1930s or whatever. I'll just show you a few pictures first of all. Usually these cases are a little bit difficult sometimes to really prove, because if you really want to prove something, then you have to have all sorts of evidences. And the problem is that a lot of these things happen so quickly, it's very difficult to get proper evidence. So all you can do is get maybe reliable sources of people that don't have any motives in what they say. You can get photographs, you can get testimonies, things like that. But photographs can be doctored, so that's the problem. Also, you can make, and that's happened. Also, they know that some photographs are doctored, and they just make them from something else. People have motives of becoming famous, so they may lie and cheat and do things like that. That's also happened in the UFO world. There's cases of that. So it's sometimes hard to get real good evidence. But anyway, this is one here. You can never say whether they're true or not, but this is just something recent. Somebody took a photo like this. I don't know if you can see it. There's a thing up there in the corner flying around. That's a recent one somebody took. You know. But there's so many like this. Here's another one. I think this was taken in somewhere in Europe. I think in someone in the army took it out of his airplane, I believe. He has a video of it, I think. There's a thing flying around in the sky up there. Oh, right up in the corner here? Up here somewhere. That little thing there. He's got a video of it and it's moving around in the sky when he was in his airplane. I think it's a Polish person. Took this thing from an airplane. I think it was a pilot. That was last year, I think. This is just some person in his house. He took a picture and he saw this thing in the background of the picture. Behind the trees there, we see this thing. This in America someplace, I think. Just recently. This year sometime, I think. On that one.
Where was that?
Huh?
Where was that?
Where? In America someplace. Somebody was just, taking pictures. He saw this thing in the sky coming down, so he snapped it before it disappeared. This one is a little difficult to see. This is 1989 in Belgium. There was a series of very, very much publicized in the newspapers where these triangular objects were seen in the sky, and this is taken from the bottom of the object quite close. You see lights all over the bottom of it. There was many of these triangular black things floating around in the sky, and many people saw them, and it was reported in the newspapers. It went on for months, actually, and people saw these things in the sky for a long time. And this is one picture of the thing. It's a triangular thing. It has lights on the bottom. That's a very close picture, and generally you don't get such close pictures of things. Like that. This one took place a few years ago in Mexico. Somebody took a video of it. And it was around for a few minutes, actually, flying around the apartment buildings. See it? That thing there, right beside the building, there's that object there. And they have a very nice video of it going fast. It went around and it went up the top, and it was kind of hovering over the top of the building for a while. And then it flew off, So it's not uncommon nowadays. You get all these things taken by army people, sometimes by people, cameramen for videos and taking for television or something. They just happen to point the camera in the right direction and they catch these things sometimes, accidentally or whatever. Like that, you get those things. Then, of course, there are the claims of actual meeting people, or all these sort of mysterious things where you meet the ETs, like in science fiction like that. Nothing can be proved. Nothing can be proved on that. But among the abduction cases, but they can't. They get abducted, so they can't bring the guy back and photograph him or anything like that because they're at the losing end of the deal there, and they get abducted. So they can't. There's no evidence there other than that they got scars on their body or something like that, or operations done on them. But from the descriptions we get these type of photos. These are not real. These come from a movie or something, I think. But some documentary somebody made. But this is the general shape of these creatures, kind of skinny-looking things of different colors with leathery skin. The first one they think was in Roswell. That was where there was an actual crash, apparently. And there were some dead bodies there which were living when they got them first, and then they died shortly afterwards. Those creatures died. There was maybe a few of them. Then they say there was another one, another crash shortly after that, and they actually got a live one who was in captivity for many years in the U.S. military somewhere like that. This is the model actually, but apparently this is what they must have seen in Roswell when the crash took place, something like this. Generally they're short beings, 4 feet tall or so. with a rather pale gray skin, leathery skin, big heads, no hair, big eyes, particularly big eyes. And the digestive tract apparently is completely different from ours. They don't eat in the normal sense. They rub it through their skin or something and they get their nutrients that way. These ones? Well, it's hard to say, but we have to judge by the activities more or less. The appearance is not very heavenly from what we see, in Swargaloka people are very beautiful looking and like humans, but more beautiful. There are experiences, people have these also, that they see the humanoids also. Some of them are very big, like 9 feet tall even. Huge. But very beautiful people also. So some people have that experience also. But then a lot of them, the ones, especially the ones who do the abductions and stuff, are this type, the small ones with the big eyes. And some of them are not even worse than this. They're reptilian in nature with scales in the body, and they look like, alligators or something. Some look like snakes also. So you get reptilians and snake-like creatures also coming up in the... So you get all sorts of creatures. Yeah. Some of the beings, let's say, like the Rakshasas and the Nagas and the, Pisachas and all these creatures in a subtle realm. From our point of view, we can explain it that way. And they are very powerful. Once you get under their control, you can't get out. You're just like, can't do anything anymore. You get paralyzed. They like hypnotize you or something. So anyway, those are just a few type photos, but there's many other things there. But of actual beings, no one's actually photographed one as such. People have experiences, but no one's got a real photograph. Of the ships, yeah, plenty of them around. Plenty. But the actual beings, no one's got an actual photograph of an actual being, so some difficulty there. Anyway, in the modern, because we do have such recording abilities now and so many people are looking, therefore we do get a lot of these experiences coming out among the different people. So what I'm going to do here is just... And it's more common than we think. The experiences, like the abductions, it seems to be more common than we think it is. It's quite prevalent. So much so that there's been studies done by universities on this and things like this. Now, actual cases, you see, generally people don't want to admit even these like the flying saucers are real, that it's all illusory like that. So it's, people are that category. But there have been even definite cases in the military itself and otherwise that the cases seem irrefutable. There was one case in America that was in Texas. 3 people, 2 women and a son was in the car. They were in the car. This was in 1980. And they were driving in their car on the highway. Then they saw a bright light in the sky. So they stopped the car. And then the light kind of was right over them and it almost blinded them. They got out of the car and they saw this object which was shining bright light just above them. And there was a huge noise also going, and it got very hot. And when they did that, then they didn't know what to do. They just wanted to get out of there. It was so hot. Jumped in the car and went off. But then they discovered when they got back, they started getting sick after the whole incident. And of course, one other strange thing is that they noticed when that object was there was 23 black helicopters following it. Which is very strange. Anyway, they got in the car and they drove off. They got home and then they got sick. And so sick they had to go to the doctor. And then when they went to the doctor, they found out that they had radiation burns all over the body. Yeah. And one woman actually suffered for many years, and she got cancer and things like this. Her hair fell out and everything as a result of that experience, and her hands were burned and everything like that. The others also had some problems too. Later on, they made a case. They tried to sue the government, the army, because of all the damage they'd done. And the court said, "Well, look, the army says they didn't have anything there, and we didn't see that, and we didn't put the helicopters there either." But nevertheless, the three women were there, and they are witnesses. That are the two women and the one boy were there, and they do have evidences on their body that they were burned. And later on, one physicist went there to that spot. He looked for radiation, but there was no radiation there. But he did see that the ground actually was melted there under high heat, and it had turned into glass because it was sand, and the heat had turned the earth into glass in that area. All silicon had melted into a glass sheet. So he said it must have been some very high intensity microwave or some very hot wave, which wasn't radiation, which was associated with that craft. So there was something, that was physical evidence was there, and there was the witnesses, plus there was the physical problem with their bodies afterwards. So obviously they couldn't make the whole thing up. So that was just one story among many of things that point to actual reality of these things, not just real images, but actually have real effects on human beings also. In the sense they ended up getting burned as a result of that. And there was physical effects on the ground. So there's other evidences like that where people do see the things, and later on they do see evidence on the ground of these, there's markings there on the ground, etc. That much evidence is there, besides, photographs and things. So that's the actual, the vehicles. Then we get the experiences. Many people have these experiences. Unfortunately, a lot of them seem to be, this is the problem, that they're almost not physical. It's very hard to say they're physical at all because it seems to happen almost in their mind. It's very difficult to say whether they actually got abducted or whether their mind got abducted or not. But at the same time, there is actually physical evidence that something did happen because they have marks on their body. They got scratches on their body sometimes. Some end up getting pregnant. The women get pregnant, whatever. Or they were pregnant and they get unpregnant after they get abducted. So there's all sorts of weird things like this happening, which are physical things. Or they get implants in their body. They cannot be explained. There's little things stuck in up their nose or in their fingers or on their knee, and they can't get them out. Little things, and they don't know what they are. And they've done actual operations where they have got the thing out and they show this is what it is, but nobody knows what it is now. We don't know what it is, but there's something there that's got stuck inside them. So there is physical evidence that something happened. At the same time, it's very difficult to actually capture something, somebody getting abducted in progress. Very difficult to do so. So that's the nature of the experience. There are some physical effects. At the same time, it's very difficult to say when it happens, who's doing it, or whatever. But people do have the experiences, that's the thing. And it's quite common. People do have these experiences. This one, I'll just read it. This is just some woman had this experience. She doesn't even know what it is, but this has happened to her. One morning, the radio in my truck was wacky. She was a driver, I think, or something. She used to clean up do something in construction, I think. I heard some beeping noises. I got to work, went out on the assignment, and heard the beeping sounds again. They were very strong and consistent. I thought I was losing my mind, but I remembered hearing these sounds before, years ago. Asking a coworker if he heard them too, he said no. I thought he must be joking, so I laughed it off. My job that day was to operate an asphalt roller to pack the ball fields. I got up on the machine and put earplugs on, thinking the noise would go away. And it didn't. It got louder. A fog fell over the field. I didn't think much of that either. Nothing was moving. All I could see was that 6 of what I thought were headlights across the field. I remember feeling suspended, numb, hard to describe. I say they, but I don't know who it was. I didn't see anyone that I can remember, informed me that they were taking the transmitter out. I knew exactly what they meant. I had an experience in childhood, outstanding, in that I always remembered it. I woke up one morning, immediately reached out towards my lower back and felt a scab on my back and couldn't remember having a reason for it. Anyway, I was also informed that they were done with me and that I would have another child. That in itself was most ridiculous. I was informed or warned that I should not tell anyone about this because people would think I was crazy, but that they knew me well enough that I would tell.
They forewarned that it would not go well and my current children would be taken away from me. The fog lifted, and amazingly, the 3 guys in the crew hadn't missed a beat. 2 of them were still behind me in the nearby field, and the third was turning circles in the field in front of me. I felt as though I had been suspended for quite a while, but in reality it was no longer than a minute or 2 at best. I remember feeling bewildered, confused, and drained. I don't know if there was any missing time. It was the sort of job that didn't require a clock. I was quite upset about it for a week, and then it just faded. So she just had some strange experience like that. Usually these experiences are reoccurring, and they may go on from childhood to 50 years old. One person gets these experiences periodically, or maybe once a month, or maybe sometimes once a week even. And usually they can't remember, they forget about it very quickly, or they don't remember it at all. They just remember something weird's happening, and they wake up in the morning and they feel strange. And then maybe when they go through hypnosis or something like that, then they get all these strange recollections afterwards. This is a more positive one. That one's a little bit negative. Some are very negative. They completely freak out, and they just get very, very disturbed by the whole thing. There's one famous author called Whitley Strieber who used to write horror stories, but then he had some experience. He couldn't remember what it was. He acted very strangely after that, and every night before he would go to bed, he would be searching through his house, looking in all the cupboards. Got very paranoid about everything, would lock the doors every night, and keep a gun outside the door, and all sorts of things. His wife was wondering what was happening, and he'd get very, very paranoid, and he didn't know what was happening to him either. And then he went to a doctor, and then finally he went under hypnosis, and then on hypnosis, then he recollected all these experiences where these strange beings would come and grab him out of his bed and take him away and do all sorts of things to him and do operations on him like that. So, and then he was like completely horrified and completely petrified when these experiences were happening under hypnosis. He couldn't speak, he couldn't move, he was paralyzed and like that. So that was a very horrifying experience for him, and it took him years to get over that experience, and eventually he began to accept it, but still he was, quite hyped up about these experiences. This is another one. This is more positive. I always remember the first time that I saw them. So frightened was I began to shiver uncontrollably. My heart was hammering inside me with rare intensity like a pacemaker gone bad, warning me that my senses were on overload. Having one's beliefs shattered is never comfortable. But despite my shock at beholding extraterrestrials before me, I momentarily considered my plight. It was possible I might drop dead like a stunned parakeet. I was still curious but deeply scared at the same time, at least initially. My whole physiology responded to my college biology textbook. Oops, what happened here? Where was I? My college textbook, which had taught me that I was being ready for fright or flight until common sense prevailed. I couldn't go anywhere. There I was in deep space, probably in a black hole somewhere, and my autonomic nervous system was readying me for escape. Leaping into a night galaxy from a portal of the craft didn't seem a viable option. Besides, there was a greater dilemma. I couldn't move. I'd been plucked from my bed on a warm summer night, and although I'd been wearing a soft cotton nightgown, it was nowhere to be found. My nudity unnerved me at first, but in context of the Milky Way and life beyond Earth, I got over it. After being moved several times from one craft to another, I settled in, as would be a proper guest, come to visit, and eventually talked for a long time, the ETs and I, but not with our mouths. It just goes to show you that what they teach you in high school is so outdated. There I was having a perfectly nice conversation with foreigners, and I never needed to fall back on my foreign language requirement, because telepathy doesn't require knowing either German or Spanish. There was an emotional transition made somewhere in which my fright left me, as I might imagine that all my friends might be less fearful after reading the story. But there I was, intrigued, as you please, gazing in wonder at their strange grey skin. It was like that of a dolphin's, both in colour and texture, and perhaps this commonality that they shared with such peaceful creatures of the sea helped me to reconsider them. I was trying to be brave as I sat having my encounter in the nude, and I reasoned that it was not so impolite of them, as they weren't wearing any clothes either. There was no Star Trek suit or special weapon belt, and I surmised that it seemed proper enough since you don't see a dolphin show up in a Hawaiian shirt and trousers. Except they weren't animals. I knew that. Their language was directed clearly into my mind, and I could hear them with precision. And in some ways, they seemed very much like you would imagine any sentient being. I marveled I could understand them. Imagine that, I thought, having never taken a workshop on telepathy. We are family, I felt, and I next understood that within the context of a universal neighborhood, I was visiting their homes, and it was high time that we began to see more of each other. In short, during that encounter, I felt deeply honored at meeting intelligent beings from far away. And the end result was I didn't care how different they were from me in appearance or custom. I felt a degree of camaraderie that I hadn't felt in years. Who are you? What is your name, and where are you from? And then they explained, the name of our group is spelled and sounds much like your word, Sphinx. And it is only one of the words you might label us, just as others may refer to you this time around as a woman or a mother, an experiencer, American, an earthling, etc. There is not just one of us here, there's a group of us. Where we are located is outside your jurisdiction, as you would say. We live in a place that is neither here nor there, for we jet from one galaxy to another. We communicate with you right now, not from a physical planet. At this moment we are on a large craft resembling an entire neighborhood in size. And yet if you're asking us about our original planet, we tell you that it no longer exists. But then we are speaking of many thousands of years ago. That planet we destroyed, which propelled us to understanding that we might want to awaken if we wanted to continue and further our species. So we did. The name of that planet was Plutarus, but it no longer exists. Plutarus was located outside of your solar system, and we had developed it into a state of technology similar to your own, of which our technological ability far exceeded our spiritual development. Through accidental mutations of certain technology, we literally blew ourselves asunder. At that time, we had the capability to travel intergalactically, and we did. We have moved from one place to another as a group family, and we have lived on other physical planets, including at times planets in close proximity to your own. Now you understand why we you could say that God has sent us to you like angels in a sense to watch over you. Anyway, so this is a friendly experience there. So the problem, as I said, with these experiences, are they real or not? We have real physical evidences in the sense that they get, operations and damage and implants, etc. At the same time, nobody's ever brought one back, so we can examine them, and they can't say who they are to other people, so it's difficult in that way to prove. And a lot of the experiences are only finally recovered through hypnosis. And that has a little dubious reputation because you can make things up through hypnosis according to what the hypnotist wants you to say. You can also make up stories like that. So it's a little bit difficult in that way also. But some people have done studies, like in Harvard. This Ted Mack has gone through many, many interviews with people using hypnosis and non-hypnosis also. And his conclusion is that it's... as far as his experience is concerned, their stories are not related to any experience they've had in childhood, like, child abuse or psychosis or neurosis or brain disease or any of these problems. There's no explanation for why they all have these similar type stories coming out. And even they don't have any background in terms of, ufology or having any contact with any of these informations at all. They're all getting similar stories. So therefore, his conclusion was that, as far as he can think, they have to be real, that they're real experiences. So his conclusion was, he says, in my abduction cases, with a few exceptions, I have felt people were describing as best they could what had occurred. In fact, they doubt as much as I do what they have undergone. They tend to come to me saying, can you make it go away? Or will report waking experiences as dreams as they occurred at night. They want the experiences to be found to be a product of their psyches, not to be real. In case after case, I have seen the lips quiver or tears come to the cheeks when the person realizes he was not asleep and that what occurred was not a dream. I might say, yes, I'm sorry, but I know many people have had experiences like yours. One woman who came to me a few days ago and was eager to believe her experiences were dreams said to me sobbing, but if it's real, then it can happen again, and I can't stop it, and you can't stop it. These individuals prefer that it be a clinical phenomenon that will go away, or that I might cure it. And ultimately, he has an interesting conclusion to the whole thing also. But there's another Dr. Jacobs, David Jacobs. He's a history professor, actually, Dr. Jacobs. So he also did studies on abductions, and he has a rather pessimistic view of the whole thing. He says it's an alien invasion. The real invasion is more terrifying because it's surreptitious or very secret, and it's unstoppable. You cannot prevent it. He says we're doomed as a species, and we don't even see it coming. So that's because in his experience he's found that what they're doing is they're taking people and making hybrids. Taking the women, impregnating them, making hybrids and breeding the hybrids and doing all sorts of things. They don't know what they're supposed to do with this, but he says there's 4 steps in the program. Abduction, in which to take people away. Only certain people, they don't know which ones, whether it's by blood type or by whatever, they don't know what. Certain people they select for some reason. It's more compatible to their genes or something like that. Then they begin breeding them. And they've seen, whole ships of fetuses and test tubes getting, growing like that. And then they have experiences of people where they bring the mothers back to the children when they're little babies, and they have to embrace them, do things like that. Otherwise, somehow they don't seem to survive. So they have this whole program going, breeding, and then refining them and making hybrids out of those. And then they also prepare the abductees for future events. They show them all sorts of visions of the future, and then you have to play some sort of role in the future. So these are the type of things that these abductees go through, being used for hybrid type of species. So Jacob says the whole thing is a big plot to take over the earth or something like that by the hybrids eventually. That's his conclusion, and wipe out the rest of the people or something like that. So that's his conclusion. But not all people have that. For instance, the other doctor, he says it's more positive than that. He doesn't take such a negative view of it. And other people also think like that there's ultimately a fear reaction on our part because we don't know what's happening. But from their point of view, it's for our benefit. That's what they conclude. There's one person, her name is Nancy Malakaria, and her husband. They're just normal people. I think he's got a rug cleaning business or something. Then one day he started having all these experiences, and beings started coming and speaking to them. And so out of that, she said there's about 170 different alien groups on the earth. And they're all working for what is something called the project, some big project, which includes the Earth planet. There's one project for Earth. There are other projects, but they're for other worlds. The project is the organization of all the visiting life for that planet. That occurs when the beings on that planet reach a point in their evolution where they can start to understand other life. Among the alien groups that Nancy claims to have met are several that answer the description and behavior of the so-called Greys. Those are the ones that kidnap people and start breeding them. She offers a novel variation on the widely held idea that the Greys are principally responsible for human abductions, as they behave as if indifferent to human rights. The Greys are working with genetics, and they are creating races. Their methods are not as advanced as some of the other aliens that visit us. Not all of our visiting life is working with genetics, but two particular Grey races I know about are. As their technology improves, so will their methods. In the meantime, their methods prevent them from being able to join the project. But some of the project beings are working with them to help them improve communications and improve their methods, and they will eventually join the project. So it looks like she's saying that those people that do abductions in that manner are not quite so advanced. But eventually they'll join the more advanced extraterrestrials. One reporter in the Los Angeles Times, he got not abducted, but he just kind of went up somehow. He ended up in a spaceship, he says, and had all these experiences. His were all very positive experiences with his ETs or whatever. And the result of that is that he learned many things, but then his final conclusion was that his experience that he felt was that nothing could compare with the revelation that the human soul is real, human life is eternal, and God exists. So he was an agnostic or an atheist before, but these aliens or these ETs impressed upon him that this was actually real, that the soul was real and eternal and God was real. And that was the most important thing he learned from them. So sometimes they get these spiritual teachings also. Catherine Wilson has written several books in which she's had experiences, many of them unpleasant, actually, and she's was part of the breeding program also. So she thinks the aliens can induce powerful images in human mind for purposes of deception or manipulation. My experience and visions I've shown with aliens, even the ones that appear very human-like, seem to involve a level of manipulation. The aliens are interested in how we react to the information in the vision, or they use the vision for distraction or screen memory purposes. So when they're telling you it's all for a good purpose and everything, sometimes she says it's not. It's probably for a bad purpose, so, because they seem to be able to use your mind in different ways and control it and give you all sorts of different impressions. So that was her impression there. There's various opinions on this. They all accept it as a real phenomena. There are real evidences in the body, etc., and it's common enough so that experience that cannot be denied. Though other people still reject it, even in the university where Ted Mack works, a lot of people are still very suspicious of him, and they don't accept his conclusions. Think he's a little crazy. But we see that there's other support, and other people also, other academics also seem to support him when they understand what he's doing and they understand the people involved and the different patients that come to him. So it seems like people are concluding it's a real phenomenon, that there are other entities in the universe, and they're more advanced than us, and some of them are doing things to the human beings which look a little strange, and it's kind of without our permission. It doesn't look very Saptic, at least, to say the least. They're doing it for their survival, it looks like, not for our survival. So Sariputta, in his book, The Alien Identities, he says that from the descriptions of their appearance and from their activities, it looks as if they're not what we call devas, at least. They have to be in the Rakshasa or the demonic category. We accept that there are other beings in the universe, but and there are devas there up above. But there's also people on our level, and there's people below our level, and there's people on the Bhuvar level also who are of this, can be of the demonic nature. So some of these species are not necessarily good, even though they're more advanced. So they can be of this Rakshasa type species. The one contactee, one person who said he's been up with these people and other, he says his group is from Andromeda galaxy. So they're supposed to be the good guys. So he says that he's being taught that actually in the universe there's basically two groups. There's the bad group and the good group. And they've been at war with each other for a long, long period of time. And the bad groups are called the Draconians, are the snake ones. They got a snake insignia on their uniforms, and they come from the Orion constellation. And they've been around for a long, long period of time. And they feel like they should control everything in the universe. And they run around the universe in their spaceships, and they try to control all the planets and exploit them. And put everybody, if there's advanced beings there, they try to control them and put them under their control. So they had this idea for a long time, and they're just running around the universe trying to dominate all the different planets. On the other hand, they says there's other groups. The other groups are against them, so they have basically, that one strong, very Asura group there. And then you have the other groups, on the other hand, who are benefic groups, who want to maintain order in the universe and give the right of people to choose their own destiny and not get interfered with and get controlled by these, Asuras. So he says these two groups have had a conflict for a long time, and at presently there's a conflict on Earth, in which the two groups are fighting more or less over the Earth now, and the Asuras got the upper hand in one sense. Somehow or other they got in here due to mismanagement of the Earth by our our leaders. Somehow they got in different ways. Through he says through experiments, time experiments. Somehow they got in through that. They're working with time.
Would it be something to do with the situation when you're telling me that it's because of lack of samskara, of calling in good souls? Everyone's just having a illicit sex on this planet, so that
well, sinful activity, yeah. But actually more strong than that even, probably because the experiments they're doing, the weird experiments they're doing in science now, to do with time and all sorts of genetics and all sorts of strange things they're doing with life forces and stuff. Plus, he says, generally they cannot come in unless they're called in specifically by governments. And so governments want power, they'll call in other exchange something for something. So that's a common theme now, that they borrow the technology of different things like the computer technology and the other things, optical lasers and things like this. They actually got part of that technology from other sources in exchange for these beings being on the earth and influencing the human beings. So they sacrifice the human beings for their technologies or something like that. That's the rumor.
Channeling, like a lot of people do channeling.
Yeah. Well, that's not so bad, but the idea is that if the leaders consent, then they have a right to come. So they say that the leaders made a deal and let them in to get technological advancement, which was so much in advance of our present technology. So they let them get a little bit of it in terms of computers and lasers and things like that, a little bit of thing, in exchange for allowing a free hand on the Earth planet so they can get in and do a few things. So that's why they're allowed to take people off. Technically they're not allowed to do that, but because it was consented by the government, therefore they can do it, and the other beings really can't do anything about that as long as the government's just saying it's okay. So they can't interfere in one sense with them at that point. However, according to this is all this person's idea. So he says, ultimately, eventually, they're going to take all these people off. It's not willingly by force. They're going to get these bad elements out eventually. And they'll let the human beings decide for themselves what they want to do. But without the heavy influence of these other beings, because it's not very fair. They're too far advanced and they get influences too much. So they're trying to get them off. So this is his idea that there's a conflict going on now and they're trying to get the evil guys off the planet. And he says they're also under the earth, which also is always this theme of, beings under the earth. So he says they're being under the earth also, in like 100 miles under or something, and they have, dwellings down there under the earth also. I mean, sometimes you see spaceships coming up from under the earth also. So he says they're under there also.
A video from Planet Video, which is like in that section, the prophecies, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it actually showed things like that. It was about Hitler. Hitler made some place in the North Pole.
Yeah. Well, that's an idea also. He has a refuge there. And it's also a rumor that he also had some contact with the extraterrestrials and got some information from them, because he was developing an atomic weapon also at that time. Also, so all sorts of strange stories. Whether they're true or not, we don't know. So anyway, it's just like that. But it doesn't contradict what we say about the universe, because we say there are two groups. There's the good and the evil, the asuras and the devas at war with each other, and the asuras are basically preaching, selfishness, enjoyment, control of others, and things like that, exploitation. And the devas are saying uphold the laws of God, free will, certain regulations and things like that. So it all fits in with our, the Vedic concept of things. And there certainly are beings all over the universe. We know that, and they all have. Many of them are much more advanced than us, and they're more powerful than us. Their brains are more advanced. They have more knowledge than us. They don't have to look like us. Many of them can be of all sorts of varieties. We don't know. Not described in detail in Bhagavatam, but we know there's all sorts of varieties. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We've got the Rakshasas there who are powerful. We also got the Devas who are good, and other forms that are good also. So, in the modern world, we see that people are having experiences on this other level, which is also, I would say, on a subtle level. And this is what the Ted Mack, the psychiatrist, says: is we cannot always take off proof just from gross physicality, because some of these experiences are happening on a subtle level, and we'll have to accept the idea that there is another dimension, or many dimensions actually, on the subtle level, which are also real, and the beings in them also can be real, and we may not be able to manifest them into this reality here, but nevertheless, if we get on that subtle realm, we can have some experience with them. So a lot of these experiences are happening on that level.
Because a lot of people are taking marijuana.
Well, that's how you can get some bad experience. So definitely, a weak, subtle body can let evil entities in. There's another category which Ted Mack has investigated. That is not only extraterrestrials, but things like ghosts, demons, witches, everything else like that, spirits and other things like that also. And he's incorporated that into his view of reality also. That these are actually real things. They're not. And even the visions of the schizophrenic are not actually hallucinatory in a real sense, that they're not just imaginary. They're real in one sense because they're mental realities. They're mental realities. They may be created realities, nevertheless they're real for the person. There's such a strong mental energy that they become real. So. Therefore, these things can be explained in terms of, more subtle dimensions in our real world, subtle bodies. A lot of which has to do with the mind. The mind is, subtle energy. So, a lot of these beings are on a much subtle level, and we can use our mind to contact them, though physical body may be a little difficult to interact with them. Okay. Any question now?
So first question is that is these asuras and demons, so Krishna is also seated in their heart, the super soul.
Mm-hmm.
So if let's say when like these people who experience or exposed to radiation or whatever by this so-called extraterrestrial, so did it happen by chance, or is it because of their karma that they're supposed to get it, or something else?
Well, we can say partly. We can say it's something like karma, I guess.
So we have to these people that experience that radiation, cancer, and all that because of their karma.
Yeah, I suppose so. Karma. Of course, karma is there, and karma, and a combination with the why are we born now in the material world at this time? It's all karma. We're born in Kali Yuga. We're born with a tamasic society. We're born at this time. It's all karma.
So that if it's true to say that Krishna sort of arranged for us to be in this position so that of course it's a better chance to cultivate to go back home.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. We also have Lord Chaitanya's mercy now. So that's the good thing. Bad thing is we're born in a tamasic, environment. The good thing is we get the advantage of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And of course, I suppose being born in Kali Yuga, we can understand, and what is spoken of here when Krishna talks about the asuric nature, then we can see it right in front of us very, very evidently, where it's not so evident in other ages, but now we can understand it very clearly.
So even like if just your body is tamasic or this mode of ignorance, so actually if you try, sometimes we try to go and help other people, but they won't accept it or don't take it. It's because of this age, is it correct?
Yeah, of course, it's also their misfortune. We could say they're influenced by the tamas so much that they can't appreciate. That means they're very unfortunate. But with exposure, constant exposure, we can say eventually they can change, but it takes a long time. Of course, we have the holy name or prasadam and so many spiritual things. Eventually they can get affected, but it takes some time usually. So through this we see that there is, even in these experiences with the abductions, that periodically, not all the time, but periodically, they do mention about God somewhere in the whole thing. Even the ETs mention God sometimes. Some of the races say, yes, we know He exists, but we don't know who He is. That's some of them. They say that He's there and we have to follow, though we don't really know who He is. There's someone up there, all controlling, but we don't really know who He is yet. They're at that stage,
Even like those asuras who are really in the hellish planet, they're very happy. Come to the point that there is God, there is this, and so forth. But they know something is there.
Well, those ones, they don't want to accept. The good ones, they'll accept. The two groups are there. The demonic group, they say no. We have a right to control everything here. That's their idea. We want to control the whole universe. So they don't accept it all. The other groups say, yeah, there is a law there. We have to follow it.
So this people come from the hellish planet or whatever, just to test the people here, or
wealth to control, basically. And they want to control, exploit. Yeah. So we're kind of caught in the middle now. Anyway, okay. Hare Krishna.